Hello, today in this YouTube video I wanted to look at injury prevention, particularly if you're taking up a new form of activity, sport or exercise. So it's always important to make sure that you look at things that will help you reduce your potential for injury. So I wanted to look at things like what are the benefits of actually doing the exercise in the first place. Well, of course, it's all about improving your cardiovascular health. A good benefit is it makes you feel better, it makes you feel good. I always feel a real sense of achievement when I've done something like running or an exercise class, and I'm helping to improve improve and strengthen on my body, particularly the muscles and the bones. So they're all, doing any form of activity and exercise is good. Our bodies were built for doing things as opposed to not doing things. So one of the first things you might want to look at is assessing your level of fitness. So how good is your level of fitness before you actually start doing the exercise or activity that you're wanting to take up? You might want to check in with your GP. That is always a good starting point, particularly if you have a pre-existing condition. At the moment in our lockdown situation, it's difficult to get to your GP, but you might want to check in with them by phone that you're doing the right thing in taking up, particularly if you were doing something like mountain climbing or white raft canoeing. You might want to just check in with them about whether you're doing the right thing. I'm going to do a polar expedition. Might want to check in with your GP whether that's a good idea, or whether you need to build in lots of things to make sure that you can do it successfully. So one of those things that you might want to undertake is a fitness test. That's always a good thing to evaluate what your fitness level is now and to give you a benchmark against which you can check your progress moving forward. So a fitness test normally involves 5 elements. It's about cardiovascular endurance. So we're looking at your levels of heart health. You might want to, it should include checking in with your muscles, both the muscle strength and the muscle endurance. So the next thing it should include is your body flexibility. And the last thing is your body fat composition. Horrible sounding form, but somebody that you might do a fitness test with will include that in. But if you've got scales that have a body fat composition in, I do have some scales. I have to sort of set it up and then I stand on it and it will assess my body fat composition. It'll look at things like whether you're a man or a woman, or what your height is, and then it will use the weight that you are to look at what your body fat composition. It will make a judgment about what your body fat composition might be. So they are the 5 elements of a fitness test, but they will also, as you do your exercise or activity, it will change as you get better. So the next thing you want to make sure is, are you using the right gear for the sport that you've chosen? So footwear, for example, trainers are the most often thing that you might use for your feet as you take up your activity, but you will need to make sure that they are suitable for you and that they give you adequate support for your feet and your ankles and cushion your feet in the right way. So if sport shops were open, you would go on one of these. They look a little bit like a running piece of, you know, equipment, and it will analyze your feet in that particular piece of footwear and trainer, and tell you whether you need to have maybe some sort of insole in to give you the right leveling up for your foot. So with my running, I generally have two trainers on the go to make sure that I'm getting the right footwear support. But if you were doing something new, you might want to take up, sorry, that noise was actually me throwing the trainers away, but if you, to give me more space. But if you were doing something like golf, you might have particular type of footwear that is required of you, and to give you a particular level of support and traction for swinging the golf ball. So make sure if you're taking up something that is a specified type of a sport like golf, that you're wearing and you've got the right level of support for what you're doing. So if I go walking, I have my really walking boots that's going to give me the right level of footwear to give me ankle and foot support for a terrain that is not level. So you know, if I'm suddenly trying to clamber over a bit of rock or through a bog, it's giving me the right level of support. So you might also need to make sure that you've got the right equipment. So here I'm using this hand weight to think of things for the weight training. If you were taking up golf again, that you've got the right equipment, that it's made for you. So if, as a woman, I'm going to use women's golf clubs as opposed to men's golf clubs. I'm going to use a golf club that is suitable for the fact that I'm right-handed as opposed to left-handed. So you're looking at making sure your equipment is alterable and suitable for you as a person, as opposed to another person. If you're looking at clothing, you're looking at making sure that if you're doing a sport or activity that is in the heat, that produces heat, that maybe the fabric that you're using is breathable. If you're doing something in the cold, you might want to make sure, you know, skiing, you might want to make sure that it is also insulated and breathable. So those are the things that you might look at to make sure that you've got the right gear. Right gear, make sure that you're not putting too much stress, particularly on your feet, to make sure that you're not going to twist your ankle, sprain your ankle, or even break your ankle. So the next thing you want to look at is the technique that you're doing. So here, basic rule of thumb, quality over quantity. So you want to make sure that if you were doing, say, a boot camp, that you're doing 10 really good quality sit-ups as opposed to 50 really poor sit-ups. And why is that important? That is important because for each sit-up that you do, you're putting your body, you're asking your body to adapt to a new level of stress and a new way of doing things. And you want to make sure that you're doing it correctly, because for each really bad sit-up that you do, you are putting stresses on your body that makes it more likely to become injured. So if you're joining a gym, make sure you do the gym induction on how to set up the equipment correctly for you. You're making sure that you're learning how to adapt the weight machines. If you're learning golf, it's a good idea to do a beginner course to make sure that you learn how to swing that golf club correctly. Mainly because as you move forward, you're going to be doing that action repeatedly, and through the years your body will adapt to that. So look at how you might find Tiger Woods, Rory McIlroy, they suddenly change the way they do their swing, and that affects their game. But they might be learning that new swing because they're learning how to correct something they've been doing incorrectly, and it's having an effect now. Look at Tiger Woods with his back problems. He's learning how to do it newly because he might have be correcting something that he's doing something in the past. That sounds very complicated, but I look at people with injuries that they might have been doing it poorly for a number of years, and now they've got back problems. So it's important to always review and make sure you're doing the correct technique for what you're doing. When I started to learn how to run, I did a couch to 5K, and that told me how to do it correctly, as opposed to just keep running until you're injured. Okay, so that's the basic principle with technique. We then look at rest and recovery. And this is important because whenever you take up anything new, you start to put your body under a new level of stress. And that is both good because it stimulates the body to make you prepared for what you're doing. And it's bad because if you keep doing it every day, for example, then you put your body under a stress that at some point it's going to say, I've had enough, I'm throwing up the towels, I can't do this anymore. So body stress is both good and bad, and you need to make sure that you rest and recover to give your body the best fighting chance it has to keep up with what you want to do. So think of your body as one thing and your brain with another. So you might be going gung-ho towards doing something that eventually becomes a situation that your body just goes, no, I don't want to do it anymore, I'm not going to do it anymore, I'm going to sit down and until you stop. Okay, so you need to build in recovery for whatever you're going to do. So in my couch to 5K, it tells me when I've done a run to take a day of rest, and I agree with that. I do what I'm being told to do. I don't go out the next day and run because I've been told to take a day of rest. It's what my body needs to do to make sure that when I come to run the next day, I can do it. Okay. So the next thing we want to look at is nutrition and hydration. You need to make sure that you are so if you're going for a walk, you're taking a water bottle with you to make sure it's not filled. I know that this says rum now, wine later, but it doesn't have either rum or wine in the bottle when I'm walking. It's got water in because I need to hydrate. So when I get to the end of my run, I'm told to have a glass of water and to have something like a banana because that's got the energy in that I need to replace. So you need to look at things like what are you doing to fuel your body to make sure you're doing the exercise and activity that you want to do. Am I having things that have got protein and complex carbohydrates? This is a complex carbohydrate. I can't really say at the moment. It is not disguising itself as a packet of crisps or a Mars bar or a Snickers bar. It's actually a piece of fruit. It's a banana. So you're making sure that you're fueling your body in the correct way and you're hydrating your body in the correct way. The last thing I want to look at is the warm-up cool-down. So when you do any type of activity or exercise, doing a correct and good warm-up and cool-down is something that you need to take on board. So science-wise, you might, there's always a debate about whether you should do any form of warm-up or any form of cool-down. But for me, as a rule of thumb, I like to do a warm-up for my run. It makes me feel as if I've prepared my body for it. And the Couch to 5K always includes a brisk warm-up walk before I start running, and a cool down walk at the end. So it's always, I think, a good thing to take on board. So rule of thumb for you here is make your warm-up dynamic. So brisk walk, squats are my two things I would encourage you to do. So what you're doing is basically movement. You're including movement and building it into your warm-up. When it comes to doing a cool down, you're making it static, gentle. So you're doing a cool down walk, you're doing static stretches. So think something like a quad stretch for 20 to 30 seconds. So static stretches tend to be stretches that you hold in one position for a period of time, a good 20 to 30 seconds, maybe a minute, just to make those muscles cool down. So to review, we've looked at the benefits of exercise. We've looked at the need to check your fitness level. We need to make sure that you're using the right gear for whatever your form of exercise that you're doing. We're making sure that you've got the right technique, quality versus quantity. You're building in rest and recovery. You're looking at your nutrition, diet and hydration. You're making sure you're building in some form of warm-up, cool down. So hope that helps, and I hope that you, whatever activity that you do, you're making sure and you're building in some sort of injury prevention. But if you've got any questions, post them below the video and I'll be happy to answer them for you. Thank you. Bye.